And what is up, everyone? I am Joe DeHoyos. I'm the host of Beyond the Woodline. Real quick before we get started, I like to always do my little speech about what I do in my spare time. Uh, for those of you guys who don't know, I am the executive director for the JRG, which stands for the Jevning Research Group. Um, that group primarily researches Bigfoot. Uh, and we have teams in Michigan, Baltimore, Ohio, Oregon, Florida, California, New York State. Uh, there's a couple other that I'm missing, I know, but of course here in Texas where I'm at. So if anyone's interested in helping out with that effort, man, give me a message me. You can find me on Facebook. You can email me at beyond.woodline@gmail.com. And we take everyone from all walks of life, regardless of your background, as long as you're a good person, right? That's what we really ask for: be a good person and be able to get along with others and uh, share data and communicate. Uh, if any of these states, if you're someone who has issues or wants to research, and we're not in your state, we definitely have connections in just about every state. I don't think there's anywhere we don't have a connection actually, because we network quite a bit with other teams and other folks. And I personally have friends all over the country that are involved in this, and I can vouch for you that they're good people. Um, they're the type of people you'd want to, do an overnight camp out, and not worried about getting kidnapped. So, I'll certainly set you up with some good people. And yeah, so if you're interested, hit me up. You can do your research online. You can do it on your phone, your laptop, your computer. You don't have to get out into the field. We don't require you. Hey, you got to get out, once a month, three times a year, whatever. If you can get out, fine. If you can't, that's fine too. Because we understand not everybody likes to get out. In the summertime, I'm never out there just because it's too hot and I don't like ticks. So yeah. So if you're interested, hit me up beyond.woodline@gmail.com. And I know you guys don't tune in to hear me rattle off at the mouth. So tonight, let me introduce my guest, Jon Strohbehn. How you doing, John?
I'm doing fantastic, Joe. Thanks for having me tonight.
Yeah, man, thanks a lot for doing the show. Man, it was so good to find somebody here in my hometown, which is Houston, for those guys who don't know. And I found John on TikTok. So if you don't mind, John, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you involved in this crazy field that we're involved in?
Okay, well, first off, my experiences with the paranormal started back in childhood. I had a lot of childhood experiences with out of body experiences. I had experiences where did remote viewing, shared dreams with people. And as I grew up, I started to have dreams come true, which were telling of the future that would happen. In fact, it's saved my life a number of times. I can't tell you how many times, and not only my life, but the lives of others. So it's been a blessing in a way. I became a rescue captain in the fire department in West University Place and in Brazoria County. Both of them were 5 years each, so I had a total of 10 years. During that time, when I was helping people that were distressed, having medical issues, I noticed things changing as they passed. And so that increased my curiosity. But anyway, as time went by, eventually my wife became ill about 20, about 2000 or so. And she had always had an interest in the paranormal. And about that time, the ghost shows were just starting to come out. Taps was one of them. Chris Moon had a magazine called Haunted Times, fantastic magazine. I wish it was still in production today because I'd still be subscribing to it. But anyway, he would not cut down on the quality of the paper and how heavy the things were, and the shipping costs were eating him up. And so he went out of business rather than cheapen his magazine. And I have to take my hat off and respect him for that. Though now with the electronic industry, I don't know why he maybe could come back, and that way there would be no shipping and mailing cost. But that's a decision he has to make for himself. But anyway, my wife was ill. She became bedridden, and she was bedridden for quite some time. But she did have an interest in the paranormal. She watched Taps when it came out, and there was a one or two other shows like that that she started watching. So anyway, Chris Moon, the man I mentioned to you in Haunted Times magazine, I was going around the country doing ghost hunter universities, ghost hunter 101s. And I had been watching him in the magazine for a number of, well, almost a year. And I kept thinking, well, one of these days I'm going to go. And he was doing one up in Iowa. And I said, I'm going to go. I'm going to go. And I didn't. I've got family in Iowa. I didn't make it. But anyway, he came over to New Orleans. He was living in Colorado. So anyway, I went to New Orleans, met him, and about 16 of us went through his university. And it was very interesting. His mom and dad helped him with it. And we had a number of experiences in New Orleans. Uh, it was a very inspirational event that he had there. So, anyway, that's how I got started. My hope was that when I came home, I could join a group, get my wife out of bed, get her out. Didn't work. In fact, I couldn't find anybody to go with, so I started the meetup group. And so then some of the people that were in that meetup group are still in my group today. We've been together for 16 years. There are about 5 of them still with me. But anyway, we grew to about 350 people in 2008. And it's pretty hard to find a place where you could take 350 people on a ghost hunt, and give them little territories and send them out, and everybody's happy. So in 2008, we rented the Tremont House in Galveston. We practically rented the whole hotel. And the Tremont was real gracious with us and everything. They gave us free run of everything. We had some really interesting experiences there. But they also rented a bus for us. They also owned the Galvez. They ran our group back and forth by bus between the 2 hotels. And so for one night, we were going busing back and forth in different groups, changing hotels even. So essentially, we had the run of 2 hotels and 2 of the best on Galveston. So
Right.
that, but we also at that time we hosted a ghost hunter university there. I wanted to train all my people that were in my team and have Chris do it. So I invited him and his family to come in, and they did. And we had Chris brought his ghost box, his Frank's box that was custom made for him. See, when Frank Sumpton was given instructions on how to build this box, he was also instructed to give it to Chris Moon. And so Chris let it sit for about 3 years, and then he got to fooling with it and found out he could really talk to the dead with it. So that's when he got interested in it, and he was using it a lot back at that time. So I've done a number of readings with him on his ghost box. Some have been very interesting. I can tell you one of them if you like a little later.
Yes, sir.
But
Yes, sir.
anyway, that's how I got involved.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, it's really hard to find someone who's been doing this for as long as you have. There's and that's not disrespecting any of the new teams out there, but there's just a lot of new people,
Right.
and it seems like so many of them. There's so many new teams, all over the country, and the majority of them are great, great people, right?
Sure.
Um, and it's hard to find someone that's been doing it really as long as you have. I think that's really amazing. That's a testament to how to your will to stick this out. Yeah.
Well, I enjoy it. And not only that, but if you look at our YouTube channel, we have some instructional videos on how to ghost hunt. And that
Okay.
started back when we were first organized with some of my meetup team. Uh, After we had Chris come in, there was a place here called Leisure Learning. And
Oh yeah.
I was instructing a ghost hunting class there with part of my team. And we would go there, once a month and have a class. We'd rent the classroom and we'd charge the students, and we'd sit through a whole day. I mean, it was 8 hours of classroom instruction. And then we would take them the following weekend out to a cemetery. I had a couple cemeteries that we were cleaning up and restoring. I can tell you another story about that in a little bit. But anyway, we were cleaning these cemeteries up, got historical markers put on them, and I was picking the cream of the crop from the classes to be part of my team. And that's part of
Right.
why I was instructing them. And part of why I was instructing them was I couldn't do everything myself, and I wanted things done a certain way. So I taught them how I wanted it done so they'd get the same results with them doing it, even as if I was doing it. So
Right.
that was the purpose of it, because you go on some of these little tours and stuff, you see people doing a little ghost hunting here and there, and they all do it different, and they get different results, and they wonder why. So
Yeah.
you've got to do it the same way. You got to be consistent, and it helps to be trained.
Right. Yeah. 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 I agree with that. I think at the very least, people should get proper training. And then if they want to do it their way, then fine.
Yeah. Once
But
you know
I think
how, yeah, and you can whatever works for you, deviate. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So, matter of fact, I was talking about this on my podcast last night. So, in my place that I'm living at now, I was talking to my neighbor not that long ago, maybe about a month, and he was uh, he was talking about how everybody here would kind of like get together and have a barbecue, and everybody got along really well.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's cool. He goes, I've been wanting to do it again. He goes, if you're interested, I said, heck yeah. I said, I barbecue, really, really good if I do say so
What's your
myself.
address? Let me write that down.
So yeah, you're not that far from me. I'll,
No.
I'll give you an invite.
I'll be right over. What are we having?
Yeah, you don't have to bring your own plate or anything. I'll take care of that. But
Okay.
he was telling me, he goes, yeah, the people that that lived where you're at, he goes, they were kind of weird, and I was like, well, what do you mean? He goes, maybe I shouldn't tell you. I said, well, no, it's too late now. You done said it.
Yeah.
I want to know. And he's like, well, they used to hold seances, there, and they used to invite me over, and I was like, well, I've never noticed anything here, so either they knew what they were doing, or they didn't know what they were doing. So know, they knew what they were doing and they closed it up, or they
Yeah.
didn't know what they were doing and they didn't communicate
Never
with
got it
anything.
open.
Yeah, to begin with. Yeah, so but I thought that was funny. It just kind of reminded me what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Learn right, and
Right.
then kind of
Right.
tweak it a little bit. If
Yeah.
But yeah. And then you mentioned the Galvez. So I'm in printing, and one of the bosses, he knows the people at the Galvez, and I've been trying to get into that hotel so long, but they haven't let me go in there yet. But apparently they do let investigators go in there from time to time
Yeah.
and check it out. So I'm not giving up quite yet.
Well, I tell you what, we're planning to go back. In fact, I'm getting ready to make a trip down there and talk to them. And if we can get in, you can certainly tag along.
Oh, nice, nice, yeah, yeah, cool, man. I'd love that. Because what is like the main room? Is it like 501, 801, or something like that?
Where that lady was, I think it was 507, I believe, but I'd have to
507,
look
yeah.
at my notes to remember. She hung herself in one of the ventilation shafts, as I recall.
And what was the story behind her suicide? Or
Well,
why she hung herself?
her fiance had gone to sea. He was a merchant marine, and they were supposed to be married. And who knows? It may have been one of those things where she was pregnant or something. And anyway, he did not return from the trip. The ship came back without him. She felt like he had passed away, so she committed suicide, and
Right.
then he returned. And so it was a
Oh,
tragic story.
yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I do remember him coming back. I just didn't remember what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, like, when you started doing like investigations, were there places you could go to, or were you doing private
Well, we do
home?
some private ones too, but I tell you what, I'm not opposed to going out in public and doing it. In fact, if you look at one of the Twitter things or some of our videos, we've done a little at San Jacinto Battleground out there. And the thing about history, I love history for one thing, but I'm very much interested in history and how it came about. And at some of these places like the Alamo, uh, there is a lot of energy expended there with people dying. And like at the San
Right.
Jacinto Battleground in the marsh there, after the 16 minutes or 18 to 19 minutes the battle actually lasted, the Texans were really angry. Well, they snuck up on them to start with in the high grass. They even rolled the cannon up close. But early in the afternoon, about 3 o'clock, they had fired a shot and it blew up the carriage on one of the Mexican cannons. And so later in the afternoon, Sam Houston had decided to attack, and they moved up through the high grass, and they sent the cavalry around to distract them while they came through the high grass. And then they caught everybody in the camp And in that 18 to 19 minutes, they were right up on the Mexican breastwork shooting, and the Mexicans couldn't even get to their guns that were stacked,
Right.
and crossed outside their
Yeah.
tents. So they took off running for the marsh. The Texans followed them down there, and for hours, the Texans kept killing them. They
Right.
were upset about the Goliad, the massacre at Goliad, the massacre at the Alamo, and they knew that Santa Anna had definitely intended to kill them the same way. And so they were really upset. They were like raging animals when they crossed that breastwork. There was no stopping them. They were killing people left and right. They were killing anything that moved. And the Mexicans ran out in this marsh that looked like it was hard ground, and it turned out it was a bog, and they couldn't move out there. 600 of them, I think 612, 620, died
Yeah.
out there in that marsh. And so,
And what people don't realize is that the Mexican army at that time, they were a formidable force.
oh, absolutely.
And
The neighbors,
and
the Texans were outnumbered almost 2-1.
right. And so they like pushed them, and they were right on their butts basically, and
Right.
they were pushing, they were chasing them down, and the Texans slept during the daytime because they knew that in the night they were going to come get them. That's what their plan was. So the Mexican army had been pushed to almost exhaustion,
Mhm.
and like I said, the Texans stopped.
Yeah.
They got their rest, and they knew at nighttime, the Mexicans were going to have to go to sleep. you know, so that's what. Yeah, they snuck up on them, and yeah, it was a pretty good strategy. And it's funny because I was at the Sam Houston statue Saturday when I was out there at Herman Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was out there, and yeah, I even took a picture of the Sam Houston statue, and I got it on my Facebook page.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's pretty good. I don't think people realize the amount of history that Texas has when it comes to the Civil War. I mean, yeah, we're in the South, right?
Yeah.
But actually, it's not even the Civil War, but
Yeah.
in all the battles that were fought here in Texas. There's a lot of battles that were here in Texas.
Yes, there are.
Yeah,
They had battles in Galveston too.
right. Yeah, Galveston, and of course, with the Native Americans also. Texas has a crazy history, and depending on which side you're on,
Yeah.
if it was a good thing or a bad thing. But it definitely, I think, has got a lot of trauma,
Yeah.
to to the whole atmosphere of Texas,
Yeah.
and it's rich in history.
Well, part of
Like,
what makes it work is that apparently when you transition, your thoughts go with you, your soul goes with you, your memories go with you, and when we catch them on EVPs, we can communicate with them, and talk to them. And so they are intelligent. All they've lost is their bodies. So when they experience death in a massacre like this, a huge amount of energy is expended and lost. Well, energy can't be destroyed or created. It only
right.
transforms. So anyway, that energy is still there. And if we can go tap into it and motivate them and maybe put some white noise out there, then they can interface with us.
So, in your opinion, why do spirits stay here? What is that? What is the reason that they stay here? Are there different reasons?
There are different reasons. Some of them have unfinished business. Some of them may have loved the place that they had. They put their entire life into their homes and their farms or whatever they had, and they're reluctant to leave it. Some may not have lived a life that they were proud of, and they may not want to meet the maker to get judged, and it's safe to stay behind, rather than go. So there are a lot of reasons. Some don't even know they're dead yet. So,
Right.
so there are lots of reasons why they haven't gone home.
So, and that's something you hear a lot of also, is that they might not even know they're dead. What is your opinion on that? Why wouldn't someone not know that they're dead?
Well,
You know?
it depends on how fast they crossed over, because actually, if you go fast enough, you won't notice that transition, and I
Okay.
believe that's probably what it is.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that does make sense too. And I guess there's even residual hauntings still around Texas, maybe.
Right, and again, that's energy. What they have found about some of the residual hauntings is that a lot of it has to do with maybe crystalline structure, that's in the ground and the groundwater. Uh,
Right.
and of course, computer chips are made out of crystal. So this energy, when it's transformed a little bit, it's recorded into the crystal, apparently. That's what the belief is. And that it will replay like a movie. You're playing a videotape, electromagnetic tape. Each time it gets a little weaker, but it's exactly the same. It doesn't care whether if you're there or not, and whatever causes it or triggers it to happen generally causes it to happen, on a regular basis, like once a year or once a month or once a week, whatever the interval happens to be. So whenever we're talking to somebody, we try to, if it could be a, a residual haunting, we try to get them to write down information about it. So, well, even if it's intelligent, if we can schedule when it's going to happen and be there, that's really helpful. There's no point in going if you can't catch it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Um, so, like, when it comes to Texas, have you went to any other cities here in Texas to
Oh,
investigate?
we've been to lots of cities in Texas. We've been to Jefferson. We've been to San Antonio. We've been to Yorktown. We've been to Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth. We've been all over.
Do you have a favorite spot?
I, I kind of favor Galveston,
Okay.
but Houston's not bad either. I mean, and
Right.
actually,
Right.
to be honest with you, wherever you go, there are places haunted everywhere.
Right. Yeah. I believe that
I
too.
mean, my house, I've got three here with me.
Right. Yeah.
My wife is
Like I
one
said,
of them.
yeah. Is that something you want to talk about?
I can talk about it, sure. Yeah, my
Okay.
wife passed away in this house. Mhm.
Okay. When did you notice that she was around?
Oh, well, I don't know exactly when. It wasn't too long after she had passed. She's been gone now, I guess, about 10 years now. But it wasn't too long afterwards. I noticed I woke up in the middle of the night and somebody sat on the bed. And they sat on the bed and I jerked up and I'm looking and, nobody there. And I'm thinking, what the hell? And then they laid down and I said, oh, so it must be Kay. So I said, I just laid back down, covered up, went back to sleep. And periodically she comes to bed and gets in bed. Hey,
Right. So does that make it easy knowing that she's around? Does it make it easier?
it does sometimes. And actually, whenever I'm around some really gifted psychics, they know
Mm.
she's there and they give me messages from her all the time.
Oh,
Now,
that's
also,
nice.
I'm pretty good with dowsing rods. And so,
Mm.
whenever I'm doing some dowsing rod work with people, I use her to help me show them how. And it helps them be able to understand how the dowsing rods work and they can feel it for themselves. And I've rarely had anybody not be able to use dowsing rods after I taught them how to do it.
Oh, nice. See, that's something that I want to get into. I just never,
Yeah.
I guess I need somebody like you to show me how to do it.
Well, I got a video on that on YouTube
Oh, nice.
on
Okay.
how to make the dowsing rods out of coat hangers. And you can sit there and make it. And then I got a second one on how to
I
use them.
saw that one. I saw it. Yeah, I saw that one.
Okay.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah. But real quick, not to get sidetracked, Sandra here, who's one of the biggest fans of the show. She watches almost every episode.
Okay.
She has a question.
Yeah, I
She
see
says, "Do
that.
you believe in good or evil spirits?"
Me, yes, I definitely believe there are good spirits and there are evil spirits. And there are some that have never lived, never been, a person. So there are some good and evil other things out there. So where there is light,
Okay.
there is dark. Where there is good, there is evil.
Okay. Uh, and I was going to ask you this question, but I'll later. But I'll ask you now since we're on the topic. Have you ever been scared?
I'm trying to think. Well, it was sort of paranormal and it wasn't. Okay. Let me give you the whole story because a lot of the stories I just won't tell unless I'm real comfortable with people because I don't
Right.
want them to think I'm crazy. Because I've got
Look, I looked
lots of
into it.
stories to tell, and you would, if I unloaded on you, you would actually send the guys in the white coats. But anyway, as a fireman, I was up on the roof of this building, and I felt the roof go boom, and I'm thinking, oh God, this roof's going to cave in, and I'm going to fall into the fire. And so I turned around to find my ladder to go down, and somebody had moved the ladder. Rule in the fire service: never move somebody's ladder. They've got to have that ladder to get off. My ladder was gone. I had no place to go. I felt boom. I felt that roof go again. And then all of a sudden I heard the crash, and that roof was going, and it was gone. And I wasn't falling. And I opened my eyes and I looked down. And I swear to you, God reached out, grabbed me in his hand, and put me on a fireplace on the top of a chimney. And I was standing on top of that chimney when that roof came down.
Oh, wow.
I never saw a chimney there. There was no chimney there. If I had seen it, I would have tried to jump to it. It was not there. I swear. I guess God built it and put me on it. I don't know. It was suddenly there. But I've got lots of stories similar to that too.
Right. Yeah. But yeah. But that's amazing, and that's very similar to some of the folks who got out of the towers during
Yeah. I thought
9/11.
I was dying. I thought I was going to drop in the fire and be dead.
Right. Oh, man, we're glad somebody helped you out,
Yeah.
and we're glad you're still here with us. So wow, that's a good story. I like that one. Um, let's go back to the ghost box. You said you had a story about the ghost box.
Sure. Which one you want to? Oh, that one. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember which one I was thinking about with the ghost box. I have lots of experiences, so I had to think about it for a minute. In this particular case, I had a young lady living with me at the time, and her husband had passed away about 5 years prior to this event. And so she was a very good ghost hunter, and I really liked doing it. Very talented at it, and did a lot of fantastic camera work. She was always catching something. Sometimes it was her husband posing for her, but we figured that out over time. But anyway, he had died on the job. They had separated at the time, and they were talking about getting back together. And there were times when she said, I just wish I could talk to him one last time. I wish I could talk to him one last time. And her birthday was coming up. So we were on a ghost hunt, and she happened to mumble that, and I heard it. And I said, Siobhan, are you really want that? And she says, yes, I do. And I said, okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get hold of my friend with the ghost box, Chris Moon. I'm going to call him and see if we can do this on Skype and get him to get his ghost box out. And so she said, that'd be fine. I got on the phone. I called Chris. We set up a date and a time, and I got off the phone. I turned around and said, okay, Siobhan, we're going to do it this night at this time. She turned pale as a ghost. Her jaw dropped. I said, what's wrong? Are you okay? She says, that's the day he died. That's the hour he died. So that's how this started on this particular episode. So anyway, I told her, I have had Chris do some readings for me, and when you get involved in it, the time goes real fast. And before you know it, the time's up and gone, and you haven't gotten your questions answered. And I said, if you got questions you want to ask your husband, get you a legal tablet, write it down. And so I had her write it all down. So anyway, we're on the computer the night of it. She has a tablet with a legal pad on it. About halfway down, she's got questions. So anyway, we're sitting at my dining room table, laptop, and Chris is on. And Chris says, there's movement behind you. He's standing behind you all over there. Well, as soon as Steve, her husband, came on, she says, that's his voice. That's him. And she started crying. She was that moved. She recognized the voice and everything. So anyway, it was very emotional. I'm even moved by it still, after all these years. It's been some years now. But anyway, during the thing, Chris says, he says he's standing behind you. So Chris was repeating some of the stuff he was saying to make sure we understood everything that he was telling us. And so anyway, it went on, and he kept talking and stuff, and Siobhan would talk a little bit, and then he'd be talking some more. And so I said, Siobhan, you've got all these questions you need to ask. You need to get started, or you're running out of time. She says, he is standing behind us. He's going down the list.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So he was answering the questions right off her list. She didn't have to ask them.
Nice. Oh, that's a good story. I like that one. Yeah.
Well, this is some of the part that was moving for me too, was he confirmed that God and Jesus were real. And that I took, wholeheartedly, because her recognizing him and everything kind of in my mind solidified the whole thing and, made it cohesive, made it real. And so, with Steve talking, I believe that through their connection together and them talking, that I could believe Steve. So,
Right.
and as a
Yeah. Yeah.
Christian, of course, I'm thrilled to hear it.
Yeah. 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 I was going to ask you that too, if
Yeah,
if you're a religious person or not.
yeah,
But yeah.
very much so, very much so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. And what about your cemetery story?
Okay,
Can you
well,
want
the
to?
cemetery story, part of it was that how the Lord works in mysterious ways, really. But anyway, we would go and take our teams out to the cemeteries. And part of the reason we were able to do that, we would do the cleanups. And so we had gone on a tour in Belleville, Texas, uh, through the historic homes there, the group had. And while we were out in a cemetery, we had been collecting EVPs. One of the guy that owns a bakery there, God, what's his name? He's got a big bakery right on the main drag there at the intersection in Belleville. Newman's Castle. He built a castle for his wife out in the woods with a moat around it and everything. She left him, but it's a beautiful castle. He was telling us about it while we were at his place. We went out to his place and saw it. Beautiful place. I think he's doing tours out there now. But anyway, he took us around on some of these tours. And he had taken us to a couple of cemeteries. And that's how we found these cemeteries. They were they had Civil War soldiers in them, so they were old cemeteries. And this particular one was called Concord. It had originally had a Lutheran or a Methodist church there. The church has been long gone. So anyway, you could not even get up to where you could read the headstones. It was that bad. So we decided we were going to come back. Well, actually, in the one cemetery just down from it, a half mile away, Kessie Cemetery, we had gotten a EVP down there from a little girl that said, "Help me." And so it was clear. I mean, it was a Class A EVP. When the team heard it, they said, "We got to go back and find out what's going on." So when we went back, that cemetery was a little grown up also. So we took some mowers and stuff, and we took some shovels and stuff. And actually, her grave was kind of hidden. It couldn't be found. And we think that's what she wanted, was to have it cleaned up. So we cleaned up around her grave. We left her some stuffed animals, and, we left feeling good. But some of the team wanted to go back and do, more at the cemetery. So I contacted the caregiver there. They gave us the key to the gate. We have free access to it, still have a key. We're welcome anytime. But the other cemetery was just overgrown and terrible. So anyway, we had scheduled to go up and take care of it and talk to some people about it. And I had a new guy in the group that was a EMS guy. His name was EMS Cougar. He's dead now. But anyway, at the time, he was on a rescue team. He was dating this young lady, and he had just joined the team, only been on about a week. And then he told me that his girlfriend had found out she had people that had been buried in that cemetery. So a couple of days went by. She called me. She was all excited. She was telling me about a couple of the people that in her family were there. So anyway, the weekend came. We went up and we worked our butts off. And when the evening came, we kind of settled in and relaxed a little bit and got our lawn chairs out. And she went to the car and brought out a shoebox. She actually had 86 family members buried in that cemetery. And she had pictures and stories. And we sat around the campfire when we fixed dinner that night. And she was telling us the stories about her relatives that are buried there. And actually, we got some of her family involved in helping to continue to maintain that cemetery. We got a historic marker put on it. The state is so fond of paranormal people. that they refused to put our name on it. They just said a volunteer group from Houston came up and restored the cemetery, but they would not put our name on that marker.
Hmm, that's interesting. Yeah, I like that story too.
Yeah. Well, actually, I don't know why the paranormal in some cases has such connotations to it, negative connotations, because
Right.
I mean, it's a lot of people are interested in it. A lot of people want to know more about it. But I called a hotel today that had a report on that was haunted, and boy, the lady was not happy that I was calling, and
Wow, really?
oh yeah, she says we absolutely do not allow any paranormal groups in here. We don't talk about it. We don't allow any social media on it. We Hey, we don't want you. And
Hmm.
actually, the person that had reported it was lived across the street from them. So hey,
Oh,
he was having
you know,
activity too, and he didn't want to report it either. So he wanted us to investigate the hotel. And actually,
I understand.
that hotel's been bought by local historical committee, and so they are
Mhm.
running that hotel as a nonprofit. But hey, at the same time, I guess they don't realize that they could probably keep it full if they
Right.
opened it up, and we're a little more open with it. You know,
Yeah. Exactly. I never understood um, why places that have activity wouldn't want people to come in because first of all, that's you're creating revenue for yourself, and then not just that, but you're bringing more attention to the place. More people are going to pay attention to
right?
it and visit and
Yeah,
stuff like that. So
yeah,
but I guess like you said, some people just don't like it. There's negative connotations to it, and
yeah.
at the end of the day, it's their property, and to each their own.
Absolutely, it's their property, and all we can do is respect what they tell us. They own it. So that's what we do. Now, even the state of Texas, though, I've had some issues with some of them too. Uh, they find out you're a paranormal group, they're not as receptive to you as when you were just a nonprofit looking to help them. And actually, some of the stuff I have done is try to get people to go to some of these locations. It will increase the budgets for those facilities through the state because people are coming there. It increases the revenue because tourist dollars are coming there. And so it's a win win for everybody. And everybody, we got a lot of people coming to the state of Texas that are moving here, have no clue as to what happened or any of the history. The Houston
Yeah,
schools are closing some of their libraries. Where are you going to
right,
learn?
exactly.
So I'm
Yeah,
trying to get some funding to do some documentaries to record this so that some of these people will have a place to come to get some of that history in a documentary and be able to understand what happened here and to find out what a wonderful place Texas is and how brave the men and women were that lived here in the past and that they need to live up to that level, step
exactly.
up to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
plate.
that's right. That's a great point. And Sandra again says you're a good folks to go clean up overgrown cemeteries. And yeah, that's great. I think that speaks volumes of your character, man.
Yeah,
So,
and we didn't get paid for it. We did it on our own, and it was weekend after weekend. Of course, now like you, Joe, we didn't go in the summertime. We went
right,
in the late fall and the early spring, but we would go
right.
through the winter, and yeah, we had lots of interesting experiences there.
So I've shared this story before, so I hope no one gets offended by me telling it again because I've told it several times. And but I thought you might find this interesting. I went to go. I used to work part time at Best Buy, and we're working there at Best Buy. There's a lot of kids there, right? A lot of young kids still in high school, and some just out of high school. That's really all their like their first job type of
Hmm.
stuff, right?
Right?
Um, so someone had heard of a Civil War cemetery, and this was out in the Humboldt area.
Yeah.
They were like, we want to go find it. We want to go find it.
Hmm.
They were like, do you want to go? Because they knew I was interested in all this
Yeah.
stuff. They're like, do you want to go with this? So I'm like, yeah. So I'm going out there with a bunch of, they're probably from anywhere from 17 to early 20s, kids, right? I'm like the old man of the group,
Hmm.
and I'm like, yeah, I'll go with you. So I drove out there with them. We parked in some big parking lot, and they were like, yeah, we got to go through. We got to walk over these tracks and through the woods, and the cemetery is supposed to be back this way. So we're walking, and we come to this big clearing. So we keep on walking, and then we get to the wood line again, and we start walking within the trees, and we find a homeless camp, and there's nobody there, but you can tell that it's very much lived in.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, well, we should probably get out because if these people come back, they're not going to be happy we're here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we started walking back. We get to that clearing, and the fog starts coming in, right? The weirdest thing, here comes this fog, and we get about halfway in the clearing, and one of the guys looks down. He goes, "Hey, look, there's headstones here." We start looking around. There's headstones everywhere, but we didn't see it on the way in.
Yeah.
We saw it on the way out in fog at that, and the fog was maybe just ankle deep, maybe shin deep.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was the weirdest thing, and I never could explain that. Like, why didn't we see these headstones on the way in?
Well, what was,
And they weren't like headstones that were up. They were like the plaques,
yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And but they were the old school like brick plaques. It was strange. It was very strange. And if someone hadn't spotted it, somebody eventually would have tripped over one, and we would have seen it. Because they were. I mean, they were there. They were there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was one of the weirdest. And that reminded me of that when you talked about the chimney thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was very strange. We've had and then the only other place that I've ever investigated was up in Mineral Wells, which is the Haunted Hill House.
I've been there.
Okay. Oh, have you? Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you
Didn't
think
she
about
talk
that?
to you about the group that came from Houston? We had made quite an impression on her.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
years, I would hear groups come back and they'd say, "John, we heard about your group up there at Hill House. She was talking about y'all up there." We went up there in about 2007, I
Okay.
guess, late 2007, early 2008. And we did a live broadcast there. Actually, we shut the broadcast down. We'd go in 2-hour segments. We'd rest for about 2 hours, then we'd go 2 hours and stuff.
Okay.
And actually, they had an upstairs kitchen with the black and white floor. I don't know if it was still there. They were remodeling all the time, so
Okay.
I don't know if they still had that floor or not. But anyway, we had children up there, and I had forgotten to take the baby powder to put on the floor and stuff, so we could monitor tracks and little balls that roll and stuff. So we robbed them of their coffee mate. We poured that all over the floor and put the toys
Oh,
in the coffee mate. And I mean, we had handprints. We had the balls moved and stuff. So the kids we didn't record it, didn't see it, but the evidence was there. Somebody had a good time there in the coffee mate. So I
right.
should have had a
So like,
plastic sheet because that coffee mate was a little hard to get off that floor.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We had one of the guys. He had this little penguin, and it had like these little white microfiber looking hairs, and
Mhm.
it was a kid's toy. But the way it went off is like if you touched the hairs on top of the head, it would
Yeah,
it
yeah,
would light it
yeah.
up and play music. And we had that sitting in the middle of the room, and it didn't do anything. So after everyone left, I stayed there and I was just watching it and watching it. And sure enough,
Yeah,
that sucker went off. It was pretty
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
That was one. Yeah, that was it's a pretty cool little split little place. I kind of want to go back there again, and but there are quite a few places here in Texas that actually do allow, for people to go
Sure,
investigate. And
sure.
you know, so we got to talking about the libraries, right? Um,
Yeah,
what about the Houston Public Library, the main branch downtown? Have you ever done that one, or have you ever been to that one?
I have been there many times in my lifetime. I haven't been lately, but you're right. One of the janitors there used to be a fiddler, and he has been heard walking around, even outside the building, playing his violin at night. So, yeah, there is a haunting there from one of the janitors that used to work there.
Yeah, yeah. I think what is it? Is it the Rice Hotel? That was pretty
Rice
haunted.
Hotel, yes, sir. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, right across the street is Molly's Pub, or used to be Molly's Pub.
Right.
Well, they had a murder in the ladies' restroom there, and it's haunted.
And the old spaghetti warehouse right there off of Main.
It's closed. Yeah, we investigated it a number of times.
Yeah. What kind of results did you get there?
Well, of course, we used the dowsing rods, and of course, part of it was that meetup group I told you we started. Our first meeting was at the Spaghetti Warehouse,
Right.
and so we had they gave us the upstairs. We were the only ones in the upstairs part in the back, and of course, everybody ordered their meal. We had their meal there. That was part of the agreement, was that we had to order food while we were there. So we ordered our food, and then we did our investigation. You know, after we were through eating. But yeah, we had a lot of activity with the dowsing rods. We also had, and everybody had results from that. There was a lot of pictures taken. Some, you know, everybody was new. It was their first time. So there were some that thought they had stuff that they didn't. So, some of it was really questionable. And part of it is experience because actually, and even as modern as things are today, you can take pictures and it's just, there's software that you can have on your phone that'll instantly do things to it.
Right.
And so part of being able to say that this happened is the testimony of your team that we were all there, we witnessed it, and they did not mess with their phone now. But even back then, I had a couple of people in my team that tried to doctor some photos and submit them afterwards. And we, of course, caught them. But we also had a bunch that were given to us as being paranormal, and they weren't.
Right.
In fact, there's one of the films or the videos I put up on photography about how to catch ghosts and stuff. So it's got some examples of some of the weird photographs we've gotten, why we got them, so that you can be prepared for it. And there was one yesterday on Paranormal Connection. Had some people out there. It was raining. They had a camera undercover, and it's watching. And all of a sudden, there's kind of a spirit looking thing off to the side. Well, I knew right away that what happened was that rainwater, a drop got on the lens of the camera,
Okay.
and the smoke coming off the fire was picked up in that droplet of water and made to look weird. And then when they turned the camera, it went way out, real far because of that curved surface of the water.
Oh yeah.
And so that was just water on their lens, but they thought they had caught, an entity dancing kind of, because it was smoke moving in the thing, and it was actually just a smoke stream going up through that bubble.
Right.
And then it would disappear once it got out of rain. It stayed in the middle. And so actually there was 3 or 4 other people that said, yeah, it's the camera lens flare,
Yeah.
So anyway, when you post something like that and it's not real, you look a little bit, you look like you're not as careful as you should be. Let's just call it that.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I tell everybody you got to check your lenses before you do anything.
Absolutely. But even in that case, they did have the lens clean when they started, but
Right.
it was raining. And I saw a drop of water just before it happened. I saw a drop of water come in, kind of blow in that way. And then you didn't see it ever hit the lens, but then all of a sudden there's that thing happen. And I knew then that water had hit that lens and it was making that wavy thing there as the smoke was going up behind it.
I had
And that
my
was,
one of my cousins. This is maybe I've been about 2 years ago. She sent me a video of her backyard from her security camera. She's like, Joe, you need to look at this. She goes, we are like freaking out. And
yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'll check it out. And I'm looking, and John, there's this big beach ball size orb going across the backyard, right?
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
looking at it, and I'm looking at it, and all of a sudden, around the edges, I see this. It's a bug going across the lens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, in that photography one, I've got 3 slides. I think one is dust, what dust looks like through
Right.
your camera lens, so you can kind of help identify that. There's one that's got bugs. There's one that's got dust moving because sometimes they look like worms and stuff.
Right.
Because they're traveling on the air currents, and depending on how long your exposure is and your flash is up, it may make a trail.
Right.
And then there was one of them that's got moisture and dust and insects. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. But I certainly believe in orbs. I think they do exist.
they actually do. I've seen them. I've actually seen them with my naked eye, and we've gotten some pictures of them. But when I was putting that photography thing together, I did. I've got so many pictures to go through. I couldn't find them.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think I've gotten so many pictures that I've lost that I wish I still had. And you know, but I've
I
learned my
do. I do have one that a customer sent us and said, "Hey, we got an orb in here," and they were sitting across the street. They were taking a picture of their house. It has Christmas lights on it, and up in the window, there's this bright light. And I'm looking at the street there in front of them, and their flash has gone off. The street's well lit, and I can see the Christmas lights on all their bushes, and I also see the Christmas lights reflected off the windows in the front of the house. So I know that what happened was when they shot that picture, the flash from the camera hit the glass on the upstairs window, kicked back at them, and so they caught their flash, and they're thinking it's an orb. And I said, no, it's not an orb. It's the reflection of your flash off the window glass. Not only that, but if you look over there at your car, over in the driveway, uh, your taillights are real brightly lit. They're lit up from the
Yeah.
flash too. You might think they're orbs too. And even the license plate, it's far enough away. It was glowing like a white light.
Right.
So even your license plate was reacting to the flash. I said, no, you don't have an orb.
Yeah. So what's coming up for you? Are you having any investigations coming up?
Well, we've got some that are kind of ongoing right now. We've got a couple that we don't know exactly how to proceed with them. To be honest with you, we're learning about them. One of them is one where a gentleman has apparently had a spell put on him by a witch. And so I've got to locate a witch to help us get it off.
Okay. Yeah, I know quite a few witches. So yeah.
Okay, well, I need a name of a good one.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and let me tell you something. That kind of stuff that does exist, people don't think it. I, John, I never about 4 years ago, if you had told me that I would have crystals and tarot cards and pendulums and believe in this stuff, I would have told you were crazy. But now I've got oracle cards on this side, I've got tarot cards on this side, I've got a table full of crystals, I've got sage, and I thought
Yeah,
I would never have this kind of stuff. But yeah, I was definitely I had something put on me, and it was terrible, man. It was terrible, and it lasted for 2 years. I had no idea what it was. I just felt like I had this fog around me.
yeah,
It felt like I felt like I was like in a dark place, which I was, I guess. Emotionally and mentally, I was in a dark place, and it was because of that. Because a friend of mine called me at the time. They lived in South Carolina, and her husband called me and was like, "Hey, Joe, Stacy's worried about you. She's thinking about you, and she's like really, really sick thinking about you." So I talked to her, and she asked me all these questions about what was going on in my life. I told her, yeah. And she said, "Do you know somebody by this name?" I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Would she do something?" I said, "Yeah, she would." And because I know she for a fact she is that type of person to do that kind of stuff. She actually would
yeah,
have jars and up on her mantle with people's names on it that she was trying to
yeah,
put a hex on. So
yeah,
and for her to mention this name, which isn't a very common name, it
yeah.
was like, yeah, 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 yeah. So she took care of that, and after that, was like 2 days later, I was a different person.
Well, I had something similar. One of the gals in my group was a witch, and she was concerned about me, and so I needed a gree bag, which she prepared for me.
Mm.
And after that, my life took a dip.
Right?
And so, anyway, one day my wife says, it's like somebody put a hex on you. And I said, yeah. And so she said, let me see your gree bag. Well, my wife was a witch too. She opened the gree bag, looked at it. She says, you've been set up. So she dumped it all out, put the good stuff in, and after that, I didn't have any more problems. In fact, when it sent the lady out of the group, even, I mean, it was so potent, it made her quit.
Wow, wow,
So,
that's crazy, man.
I
But
didn't even have to talk to her. I wasn't going to say anything. Wear this little gree bag, wherever we went on
yeah,
an
tell everybody
investigation for protection.
what what Grigri is. I don't think a lot of people really know that unless they're like from this area.
Well, it's in my case, it was a bag that had some specific ingredients in it to help protect me from anything evil and protect me from all sorts of things. So it was a protection device.
Okay, okay, good. And what's
Lucky
coming up?
charm,
There
good
you go.
kind. Yeah.
Yeah, except this was the opposite.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was packed with "I wish you well." It had all the wrong stuff in it.
Well, we're glad you got that off you, man.
Yeah,
So we're coming up to towards the end of the show here, why don't you give people about your channels and your information and where they can find you? And
Well, let's see if I can do that. Let's see. I don't know if I can. I've got a screen up here. Let's get it down. Can I send a message?
yeah, I'm sure you can. Yeah.
Let me see if I can get that part down.
If not, you can send it to me separately, and I'll post it on this episode.
Oh, I'll tell you what I might could do. No. Okay, well, I can send it to you later. And yeah, if you'll post it, that'd be great.
Yeah, yeah. And like I
Awesome.
said, I know for sure you're on TikTok. What is your name on TikTok?
I think it's Jon Strohbehn, but also on YouTube where those are. It's YouTube at Jon Strohbehn /videos.
Yeah, I'm sure if someone searches your name, I don't think too many people have your name.
Well, there are a few. There's one other in Houston that is a son of mine, and then there are getting to be more Strohbehns around than there ever used to be. Let's see on TikTok. Whoops. It's behind me back there, and I
Okay.
view profile. It brought up a TikTok screen.
Okay.
It is Jon Strohbehn also at Jon Strohbehn. Mhm.
Like I said, just send me that information. I'll put it in the comments, and everybody can go
Okay.
find him and check
Okay.
him out. Man, he's a good dude. I actually, like you said, I saw the one about the dowsing rods. That was really,
Yeah.
really cool. I was really impressed with that.
Yeah.
And I think, you're definitely one of those guys out there that has a ton of knowledge, a ton of experience. And, I really do like your style and your approach to
Yeah.
all this. And Sandra says, interesting
Yeah.
show. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Sandra. Glad you appreciated it.
Yeah, Sandra,
I
thank you.
actually, I'm with the Red Cross also, and whenever I do a training, I'll show up for a training just to train one person. If they're interested enough that they want to learn, I'm interested enough to teach them. So,
Right. That's good. That's good. Well, cool beans, Mr. John. Let's call it a night here. I want to get me
okay.
something to eat. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
Already. But yeah, I appreciate it, man. Dude, uh, did we become friends on Facebook? I'm not sure.
I
I know.
don't know if we did or not, but we can be.
Yeah,
Not a
yeah,
problem.
yeah. If not, anytime you want
Okay.
to share anything or tag me in it, and I'll be happy to share it.
Okay. Okay.
Actually, so like the group that you're part of, which is the Beyond the Woodline podcast page. I
Mhm.
also have another group which is called Beyond the Woodline fan page, and there you can promote and post anything you want to post.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So
Appreciate
I'll
that.
I'll, I'll send you I'll send you a friend request, and I'll also send you something for that
Okay.
page. So then that
Great.
way you can post away. And like I
Sure.
said, man, anytime you want to share something, just tag me in it, and I'll share it for you. I have no problem
Okay.
doing it.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Joe.
And everybody who tuned in, thank you very much, and thank you for the comments. And Sandra, you always do such a great job. So thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you guys next Monday. I don't have my notebook with me again, so I don't know who's on next Monday, but uh, I need to bring that home. But when I get that, I will let you know, and you guys stay tuned. And thanks again. And hold on real quick, John.